Breathe in deeply, and as you exhale, let the worries of your day melt away. Tonight, we drift gently through time into the quiet hush of 1837, into the beginning of an era unlike any before it. Picture London in the early hours of a summer morning. The sky, painted in muted hues of lavender and pale gold. A soft fog hovers over the River Thames, drifting like a whisper over water. Carriages are still, shop shutters are closed, and the city is at rest. The smell of coal hangs faintly in the air. Gas lamps one by one blink into silence as dawn makes its slow entrance. You hear a distant bell, soft, steady, echoing from a nearby church tower. It is 5:30. In Kensington Palace, a young woman sleeps. Her bed is grand but modest. The room is quiet, with floral curtains slightly drawn. A gentle breeze stirs the edge of the lace, and the ticking of the clock is the only sound that dares to speak. Her name is Alexandrina Victoria. She is just 18 years old, with a heart full of curiosity and a mind wiser than her age. She dreams often of poetry and gardens, of books and distant lands she has only read about. She keeps a journal by her bedside, where thoughts are written in delicate script, thoughts that one day the world will read. But today, her world will change. A soft knock echoes through the corridor. The Archbishop of Canterbury and the Lord Chamberlain have arrived. Their footsteps are careful, respectful. They carry news that will alter the shape of British history, though they speak with little fanfare. Queen Victoria's uncle, King William IV, has passed quietly in the night. And so, as the sun begins to rise over London, a young girl becomes queen. Victoria is woken gently. Her governess leans in, whispers softly. Her blue eyes open, calm, a little startled, but not frightened. She does not rush. She rises slowly, puts on a simple morning gown, no crown, no ceremony, just soft slippers on polished wooden floors, and a heart that understands the weight of what has come. As she walks into the drawing room, the Archbishop bows. So does the Chamberlain, and with a nod, they confirm what she already suspects. "You are now queen," they say, and she replies simply, with composure, "I will be good." Outside the palace, the city begins to stir. A milkman whistles down the street. A baker kneads bread in a stone kitchen. The scent of rising loaves floats softly through the alleys. The people do not yet know that a new monarch has taken the throne, but time will tell. Victoria writes in her journal. She notes the date, June 20th, 1837. Her handwriting is gentle, elegant, not rushed. "I was awoke at 6 o'clock by Mamma, who told me that the Archbishop of Canterbury and Lord Cunningham were here and wished to see me. I got out of bed and went into my sitting room, only in my dressing room, and alone, and saw them. Lord Cunningham then acquainted me that my poor uncle, the king, was no more, and had expired at 12 minutes past 2 this morning, and consequently that I am queen." Her words are not dramatic, not proud, just quiet, honest. The kind of honesty that made people admire her for decades to come. Victoria does not yet live in Buckingham Palace. Not yet. She is still sheltered, protected by her mother, the Duchess of Kent, and her advisor, Sir John Conroy. She is watched, advised, often controlled. But all of that will begin to change. The young queen desires independence. She asks to meet with ministers on her own. She insists on standing during audiences, despite her short height. Her confidence is soft, but unshakable. She selects Lord Melbourne as her first prime minister, a gentle, kind man in his 50s who guides her patiently through the intricacies of politics and diplomacy. He becomes, in many ways, a father figure, calm, protective, wise. As weeks pass, the people begin to see her, not just in paintings or mentions in the paper, but in carriages, waving, attending ceremonies, walking beside Lord Melbourne, always upright, always poised. Some question her youth, others question her readiness, but all agree she is different. She listens, she observes, she writes. She is fascinated by the world, by art, by culture, by new machines that seem to change the shape of everyday life. She reads Charles Dickens long before he is widely celebrated. She plays the piano. She takes long walks in her garden even when the sky is gray. As the season turns to autumn, her coronation is planned. June 28th, 1838, a little over a year from her ascension. The streets will fill with flowers and flags, bells will ring, crowds will cheer, gently. Victoria will wear white, simple, elegant, with a golden crown resting gently on her head. But that is a story for another chapter. For now, we rest in the beginning of a reign that would last 63 years and 7 months, a reign that would span the rise of railways, the age of photography, the arrival of electric light, and the soft hum of industrial England waking from its rural sleep. A reign that would be remembered not for grandeur alone, but for stability, grace, and time. Let us rest here, in 1837, in this moment of quiet transformation, in the silent birth of the Victorian era. Breathe deeply, and let the story unfold as you drift, ever deeper, into the soft night. 1840. Queen Victoria is now in the early years of her reign, and London, the heart of her empire, stirs to life like a giant creature stretching its limbs beneath a misty sky. A city under fog. Imagine a gray-blue dawn over the city's cobbled streets. The gas lamps are still glowing faintly, flickering like old stars as chimney smoke begins to rise from every rooftop, swirling upward into the morning fog. There's a certain quiet rhythm to life here. Footsteps are muffled by damp stone. Horse-drawn carts clatter gently along narrow lanes. A paperboy hums as he ties bundles of newsprint ready for the day's walk. A lamplighter moves past, tipping his hat as he snuffs out the final flame with a long iron pole. His face is wrinkled, soot-smudged, but peaceful. This is his morning ritual, as familiar as breathing.
Further down the alley, a bakery opens its doors. The scent of freshly baked bread fills the morning air, soft, warm, slightly sweet. Baguettes, round loaves, and thick-crusted buns are arranged in baskets lined with linen. A milkman clinks bottles as he walks from home to home, his wooden cart creaking softly behind him. Each bottle is sealed with wax paper and string, and left on the doorstep beside yesterday's empty one. Nearby, a flower girl sets up her stand. Buckets of daisies, roses, and forget-me-nots, their colors muted by morning dew. She hums a lullaby she heard from her mother, a song of simpler times. Inside a Victorian home. Let's now step gently into the home of an ordinary London family. The house is modest but tidy, with ivy growing gently up its brick facade. The front door creaks open, and inside the hallway is dim but welcoming. Wallpaper lines the walls, floral, faded, hand-rolled. A soft fire burns in the parlor hearth. A copper kettle rests on the grate, hissing quietly. The air smells of tea and coal. In the kitchen, a woman wearing a shawl stirs porridge on the stove. She adds milk and honey, carefully. She doesn't rush. Her children are still upstairs, rising slowly, rubbing sleep from their eyes as the day begins. A grandfather clock ticks gently from the sitting room. Its chime is low and rounded, more breath than bell. It marks the hour, 7 o'clock. The father, wearing a wool coat and polished boots, prepares for a quiet walk to work. He tips his hat, gently presses his wife's hand, and closes the door behind him. The sound is soft, reassuring. Outside, the streets have come alive, slowly and gently. Ladies in bonnets walk up arm in arm down the promenade. A boy tugs his dog on a leash made of twine. The air is still cool, and the Thames glistens like pewter in the morning light. Church bells ring in the distance, not urgently, but softly. They do not demand attention. They simply remind the city that time is passing, gently. A constable walks his beat, nodding to the baker, the milkman, the flower girl. His pace is slow, predictable, reassuring. In a nearby shop, a printing press hums. The clatter is steady, almost musical. Newspapers are being rolled by hand, their ink still damp, their headlines quiet and formal. Inside a study, a clerk dips his quill in ink. The scratching of his pen is rhythmic as he copies ledgers line by line. The window beside him is fogged by his breath, but the rising sun begins to clear it. In drawing rooms, books are opened. Pages turn slowly. Men in armchairs read aloud to one another from the works of Tennyson or Byron, or perhaps the day's political debates from Parliament. A young woman writes a letter by candlelight. Her handwriting is elegant, each letter formed with care. She pauses, dips her pen again, sips tea from a porcelain cup. Letters take days to reach their destination, but time is not hurried. The act of writing is the pleasure. This is a world without rush, without the hum of machines, without screens or alerts or beeps. News travels by foot, by train or post. Conversations happen face to face, and silence is not uncomfortable. It is everywhere. Children draw on slate boards. A cat curls by the fire. Boots are brushed by the door. Time passes softly. This is London in the time of Queen Victoria. Not the grand halls or parliament chambers, not yet, but the gentle rhythm of ordinary life, the sound of cobblestones, the smell of coal and tea, the quiet strength of a city in the arms of morning. Breathe slowly now, and let the stillness of 19th century London cradle your thoughts. We have many more places to visit, and the day is only just beginning.
As you rest deeper, your breath slow and easy, the morning fog of Victorian London begins to lift. The soft city sounds hum like a lullaby. Distant hoofbeats, paperboys' calls, the low whistle of a kettle on a stove. But beneath this calm, something is stirring, a slow but steady transformation. You see, this was not only the time of gas lamps and quiet parlors, it was also the age when steam changed everything. Train, the whisper of steam. Somewhere nearby, a soft hiss begins to rise, not from the stove in a kitchen, but from beneath the wheels of a mighty iron machine. A train, long and dark, its belly filled with fire and water, begins to roll forward slowly. With a loud exhale, like a sigh from the earth itself, it begins to glide along shining steel tracks. Steam curls around the wheels, like breath on a winter morning. Coal-fed fire warms the boiler, and the pistons chug, chug, chug in perfect rhythm. The engine is not angry. It does not roar. It hums, steady, determined, deep like a heartbeat. Railroad, the expanding rails. Across Britain, the railway lines begin to stretch, like the veins of a sleeping giant awakening. Towns that once took days to reach by carriage now lie only hours apart. Villages whisper to each other through the whistle of distant trains. People begin to move, not to escape, but to connect. Farmers ride to market. Letters arrive sooner. A boy in Yorkshire might now visit the sea for the first time. Yet even in progress, the world does not rush. Time remains polite. The trains wait. Schedules are kept with care. Porters tip their hats, and gentlemen read newspapers by lantern light as the countryside slides slowly past their window. Factories in the mist. Back in London or in Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, something new has begun to rise from the earth. Buildings taller than churches, with great glass windows and brick walls that stretch into the gray skies. Factories. From inside you can hear the soft rhythm of machines, gears turning, belts gliding, levers clicking in time. The voices are hushed, mostly whispers, or the quiet murmur of many hands at work. Cotton is spun into thread, iron is poured into molds. Cloth, coal, steel, the bones of the age are made not in chaos, but in calm coordination. These spaces breathe with discipline. Morning bells mark the start of work. Midday whistles call for bread and tea. And in the evening, the machines rest, like tired beasts put to sleep. New towns, new homes. Near the factories, rows of red brick houses begin to appear, small, neat, and almost identical. Each with a single chimney, each with lace curtains drawn back slightly. Children play marbles in the dirt streets. Mothers sweep the doorsteps. Fathers walk home with caps in hand, lunch pails empty but hearts full. Inside, oil lamps flicker against whitewashed walls. On the mantel, a pocket watch ticks softly. The air smells of coal smoke, stew, and soap. This is the New England, shaped by iron and fire, yet lived with quiet dignity. Knowledge travels faster. As the machines hum and the trains roll on, ideas begin to move just as quickly. Newspapers are printed faster than ever. Books are more affordable. Children begin to learn to read, not just the wealthy, but everyone. In schoolrooms lit by tall windows, children sit in quiet rows, slate in hand, chalk scratching softly, repeating verses about kings, rivers, stars, and numbers. Education is no longer a luxury. It is becoming a way of life. A growing empire, gently spoken. Meanwhile, far beyond England's fields and factories, the British Empire stretches its arms quietly, steadily across oceans. Steamships now cross the seas, carrying tea from India, spices from the East, cotton from distant lands. Yet even as the world grows wider, it still turns slowly. Letters from across the world take weeks and are savored like precious gifts. News arrives wrapped in paper and patience. Curiosity, not urgency, drives the world. Evening returns once more over the city, and the factories fall silent. The train whistles sound one last time for the day. Men return home. Boots are placed by the door. Children are washed in tin basins and tucked into bed with wool blankets. Lamps are lit, fires tended, and tea is poured into chipped porcelain cups. And across the country, a nation built on steam and soot folds gently into night. Outside, the smoke drifts like mist, and inside, books close, candles flicker, and heads rest quietly on feather pillows. The age of steam is not harsh. It is steady. It hums. It breathes. And it carries England gently into the arms of a new world. One invention, one whisper, one soft whistle at a time. Inside the walls of the factories, machines begin their work, not with thunder, but with rhythm. Click, turn, press. Click, turn, press, over and over, like a mechanical lullaby. Looms weave threads into fine cloth. Gears rotate in perfect time. The air smells faintly of oil and fresh cotton. Workers, calm, focused, move with careful precision. They are part of something larger now. A clockwork society, each hand and wheel important. Yet even in this newfound industry, there is quiet pride. A sense of progress, not rushed, not chaotic, but certain, and deeply rooted in purpose. Around the walls of the factories, there is a quiet river. It washes the worries of the day away. The water flows slowly, smoothly, to cool the burning fever. Inside the walls of the factories, machines begin their work, not with thunder, but with rhythm. Click, turn, press. Click, turn, press, over and over, like a mechanical lullaby. Looms weave threads into fine cloth. Gears rotate in perfect time. The air smells faintly of oil and fresh cotton. Workers, calm, focused, move with careful precision. They are part of something larger now. A clockwork society, each hand and wheel important. Yet even in this newfound industry, there is quiet pride. a sense of progress, not rushed, not chaotic, but certain, and deeply rooted in purpose. Outside the factories, slow canals weave through the land, man-made rivers guiding goods from town to town. The boats are long and narrow, their painted sides reflecting softly on the still water. Horses plod gently beside them, pulling them along grassy paths. The towpath is quiet, except for the splash of ducks and the rustle of reeds. A factory worker on break may sit by the canal with a simple lunch, cheese and bread, gazing into the ripples. The sky above is often gray, but comforting, a blanket of soft cloud that holds the land close. The industrial world is not only smoke and fire, it is water, wind and wheel, all in quiet harmony. In a village near Manchester, a school bell rings, not sharply, but with a warm, familiar chime. Children file in, boys in short coats, girls in simple dresses, hair neatly parted. Inside, the air is filled with soft chalk dust and the scent of ink. A fire crackles gently in the corner to warm the room. A teacher speaks slowly, kindly, reading a poem aloud as small voices repeat, "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." Not just a rhyme, but a comfort, a reminder that even in change, wonder remains. Learning is not rushed. Pages turn slowly. Curiosity is met with calm encouragement. Beyond the city smoke, in the peaceful English countryside, life continues at its own rhythm. A black carriage, polished and gentle, glides along a muddy lane. Wheels turn softly over gravel. The sound of hooves echoes gently across the hills. Fields roll quietly past, dotted with sheep and bordered by dry stone walls. Horses and farmhouses puff faint smoke from stone chimneys. A dog naps by the garden gate. The lady inside the carriage wears gloves. She watches the hills, not with urgency, but with quiet admiration. Time here is older, not industrial, but pastoral. It flows like a slow stream, steady and clear. In a market square, vendors set up wooden stalls at dawn. They speak in soft voices, offering apples, fabrics, books, and pots. No shouting, no rush, just polite greetings and careful exchange. A baker slices bread, steam rising from fresh loaves. A mother lifts her child to see a spinning toy, and laughter gentle and light drifts into the air. Even in trade and movement, the Victorian world holds space for stillness. In a small alley behind a green-painted door, a clockmaker bends over his workbench. Dozens of clocks tick quietly on the walls, each with a different heartbeat. He holds a tiny gear between tweezers, sets it gently in place. The sound is almost nothing, but the effect is lasting. In this shop, time is not rushed. It is respected, measured, honored. His clocks do not demand attention. They whisper, reminding the world to breathe. And when night falls once again, the last trains sigh into their stations, the last factory lights flicker off.
The city exhales. Chimneys sleep. Horses are fed and brushed. Children close their eyes beneath woolen quilts. The steam still rises, but now it drifts into the stars, a signal that the world, even as it builds and grows, must pause, must dream. The Victorian night is not silent, but soft. It hums with the echoes of steam, the heartbeat of progress, and the lullaby of a world in gentle motion. You are safe, you are calm, you are floating softly through time. Sleep finds you here, slowly, kindly, without rush.
As we leave the world of steam and wheels behind, we now step into drawing rooms and parlors, where time is measured not by machines, but by manners and the clinking of fine china. This is a world where speech is gentle, and silence is not awkward, but graceful. The gentle divisions of society. In Victorian Britain, society was shaped by quiet lines. Lines not written, not spoken loudly, but deeply understood. From noble lords to quiet servants, from the scholars of Oxford to the shopkeepers of small towns, every person had a place, and every place had its quiet dignity. The morning rituals of the upper class. A lady of the house would rise gently, drawn from sleep not by alarm, but by soft morning light seeping through lace curtains. Her maid would prepare warm water and help choose the dress of the day, perhaps a pale blue silk or something darker for afternoon calls. Downstairs, the parlor glowed with quiet sun, and a table set with eggs, toast, marmalade, and a steaming silver pot of English breakfast tea. A servant's quiet morning. Below the stairs, in the servants' quarters, a different world moved, one not of leisure, but of calm routine. Boots were polished, fires rekindled. The scent of coal, soap, and bread filled the air. Each task was known by heart, not rushed, but done with silent efficiency. Even here there was pride and an honor in being useful. The voice of manners. In this society, conversation was never sharp. Good morning. How do you do? Would you be so kind? Each phrase was like soft poetry, measured, balanced, and without urgency. To interrupt was rare, to boast unthinkable. Even disagreements were softened, wrapped in delicate phrasing and polite deflections. Afternoon tea begins. At 3:30, a ritual began across parlors and sitting rooms. A bell, a soft clatter of plates, and the unmistakable scent of freshly brewed Darjeeling tea. Afternoon tea. Cucumber sandwiches, delicate cakes, shortbread, scones. Each piece was small, not meant to fill, but to offer elegance. A table was laid with embroidered cloth, china teacups with rose-petaled rims, a polished teapot steaming beside a sugar bowl and tiny tongs. Ladies sat upright, not stiff, but refined. Their laughter was quiet. Their topics? Weather, garden roses, a new book from the lending library. The world moved slowly here, like the swirl of cream in tea. The language of the fan. In some circles, a lady could speak without words. The flick of a fan, the tilt of a head, the placement of a gloved hand. These were gestures with meaning, a silent language of poise and subtle intention. To look, but not stare. To smile, but not too wide. To listen, and always seem interested. The library and the study. In quieter moments, the gentlemen of the house might retire to the study, where walls were lined with books and a clock ticked beside a brass globe. Leather chairs creaked softly as newspapers were unfolded. Pipes smoked in silence. Not all talk was needed. Sometimes presence alone was enough. A walk in the garden. In late afternoon, the garden offered a place for reflection. Gravel paths crunched softly under boots. A robin perched on a stone sundial. Lavender waved gently in the breeze. Here, one could think, not out loud, but inwardly. And in that silence, answers often came. The world of the lower classes. In contrast, the working classes lived a life with fewer rules, but no less rhythm. A pot of strong tea on the hob, children and hand-me-downs playing in alleys, evenings spent by a coal fire telling stories or reading aloud from a penny paper. Manners here were different, less refined, more direct, but often kinder, warmer, and more open. Dinner time etiquette. In grand homes, dinner was an event. Guests arrived with punctual grace. Candles flickered on crystal chandeliers. Each fork, knife, and spoon had a purpose. Conversations drifted like music, never too loud, never too personal. A toast was made, and dessert arrived on fine porcelain, perhaps a pudding or a slice of gooseberry tart. Calling cards and courtesies. To visit someone unannounced, unthinkable. Instead, one left a calling card, a small engraved name on stiff white paper. It was a message of presence, a whisper that said, "I was here when it was proper." Visits were brief, 15 minutes, a cup of tea, then a polite goodbye. A glimpse of the Queen's manners. Even Queen Victoria herself was a master of restraint. Her handwriting careful and neat, her gaze sharp but fair, her voice rarely raised, yet full of command. She valued decorum above almost everything, and the country followed her lead, like children watching a firm, gentle mother. The clock strikes 9. Evenings were short. At 9, books were closed, candles were snuffed, servants whispered their goodnights, and heavy curtains were drawn. Silence settled like a soft blanket, and sleep came not with exhaustion, but with gentle invitation. The legacy of manners. Though the era has passed, its quiet rituals remain. In the way we pour tea, in a polite nod on the street, in a carefully chosen word. Manners are not old, they are timeless, and in them we find stillness. Let yourself be wrapped now, not in lace or velvet, but in peace. You are safe in this world of courtesy and calm. Let your breath grow slower. Let your thoughts fade like candlelight. You are at rest now, and the house is quiet. A slow fade into evening. The sun sinks low over London, its rays turn golden, then orange, then a soft plum gray. Shadows grow longer on the narrow streets, horses clop slower, wagons rattle home, and doors close softly behind them. In the quiet corners of the city, the world seems to hold its breath. In a modest home, perhaps in Kensington, or just outside York, a fire is gently tended. A mother smooths her daughter's hair. A father returns from work, removing his gloves with care. The house, built from warm stone or red brick, stands quietly. Its heart begins to settle into sleep. Inside the home, the front door creaks slightly, its hinges worn but loyal. The hallway is narrow, painted in muted greens and browns, with wooden paneling and framed prints of the countryside. Boots are placed neatly on the mat. An umbrella stands quietly in the corner. And to your left, a small parlor awaits, the fireplace flickering gently, its embers glowing like sleepy eyes. The kitchen's slow goodbye. In the kitchen, the evening's meal has ended. A kettle cools, a pie dish sits, half-eaten, its crust golden. The room still holds warmth, not just from the fire, but from life. Scents of rosemary, root vegetables, and flour linger. A small sink made of porcelain sits beneath a wooden window frame. Outside, the wind begins its night song. Inside, the water in the basin is still and calm. Furniture that whispers of time. Each item in this house has a voice, but none of them shout. The high-backed chair in the parlor creaks slightly as someone settles in. The wooden table bears marks from 1,000 meals, each one quiet, each one shared. A cabinet filled with porcelain cups glimmers in candlelight. Delicate patterns of roses and ivy seem to sway as the flames flickered gently nearby. Here, nothing is wasted, and nothing is rushed. The mantle and the clock. Upon the mantle sits the family clock, small but proud. Its brass hands move steadily, never late, never hurried. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. Each movement carries you further from the present, deeper into rest. A framed photo rests beside it, faded perhaps of a young man in uniform or a child with wide eyes. The past is always close in Victorian homes, but it never demands attention, only remembrance. Firelight and soft chairs. The fire burns low, not in anger or haste, but in peace. Crackles and small snaps of wood create a rhythm, a song that has no words but every meaning. The orange glow dances on the walls, touching lace curtains and catching gently on the edges of framed etchings. A small dog lies curled before the hearth. Its breath is slow, its dreams distant, but its comfort complete. The evening rituals. It is time now for slippers, for quiet words, for brushing hair in silence. Candles are checked, drapes are pulled, the sounds of the outside world are shut gently away. In the corner, a book lies open, perhaps Tennyson or Dickens or a Bible passed down through 3 generations. The reader's voice fades, and in its place, stillness. Washing by candlelight. Upstairs, a ceramic pitcher pours water into a small bowl. No modern sink, no electric light, only water, soap, and shadow. Hands and faces are washed gently. Towels smell of lavender. Children giggle softly, then yawn. A mother hums a lullaby, slow, repetitive, soft as fog. It has no beginning and no end. Bedrooms of the past. The beds are iron-framed or carved from oak. Their covers are thick, quilted or stitched by hand. A candle sits on the bedside table, its flame steady. The room smells of linen and soot, of lavender and old paper. Above the bed, a small painting, or a cross, or a pressed flower under glass. This is not a grand palace, but it is home, and it is peace. Outside, the world slows. Rain taps on the window panes, not heavily, just enough to be noticed. Each drop a heartbeat. Horses are stabled, shops are shuttered. The city, once so proud and loud, has bowed to the night. Only gas lamps remain, their light pale and trembling in the mist. The slow descent into sleep. A child whispers a prayer. A blanket is tucked just right. The last candle is blown out with a puff and a faint curl of smoke. Footsteps climb the stairs slowly, then stop. The house is quiet now, but it is not empty. It is alive, with rest. The dream world of cobblestones. You drift now, past houses with tall chimneys, past alleys lit by moonlight, past dreams that flicker like candlelight behind lace curtains. The cobblestones are soft beneath your feet. The fog wraps you gently in memory. There is no present here, no tomorrow. Only the eternal. A dressing table waits. Its surface is worn smooth with years of quiet ritual. A hairbrush carved from cherry wood rests upon a doily. Beside it, a glass perfume bottle, mostly empty now, still holds the memory of rose water. A small mirror, spotted with age, reflects the faint candlelight, not brightly, but softly, as if even reflections are slower here. Rings are slipped off, folded handkerchiefs placed in drawers, and a final sigh escapes, not of sadness, but of peace. Windows to the world. The windows are not large, but they speak volumes. Behind the drawn lace curtains, the world beyond is distant, hushed. Faint light from a gas lamp glows through the mist, turning the curtains pale gold. Sometimes a cat passes by on the garden wall. Sometimes a carriage wheel turns slowly in the fog. But none of it disturbs the calm within. The window stands as a guardian, keeping the night gentle and the house still. Trinkets and memories. On a small shelf above the fireplace, quiet treasures gather dust in contentment. A tiny porcelain figurine, perhaps a ballerina, a seashell from a trip long past, its edges smoothed by time. A folded letter, tied with ribbon, never opened again, but never forgotten. Every object has a story, but tonight none will be told aloud. They rest, just like the people around them, in silence, in memory, in warmth. Gardens in the moonlight. Outside the back door, a narrow garden sleeps. Ivy curls along the fence. A single tree, perhaps a pear or an apple, sways in the night breeze. The soil is dark and damp, the plants curl inward as if dreaming. A stone bench rests beneath a vine-covered arch. It is cold now. No one sits there tonight, but it waits faithfully through season after season, watching, growing, listening. Sounds of the house. Not every sound is silence. The house, like all homes, breathes. There is the creak of settling wood, the distant drip of water into a basin, the shuffle of footsteps on a worn rug, and, if you listen closely, the faint sound of breathing from rooms upstairs, soft, steady, rhythmic, like waves on a quiet sea. These are the lullabies of walls that have known generations, and tonight they sing only for you. Locking the door. Back downstairs, a key turns gently in the front door, not with fear, not with force, just with finality. The outside world has been shut out, the home closed to time. A coat is hung, a scarf is folded, and a final lamp is extinguished. Darkness doesn't rush in. It arrives like a friend, familiar and welcome. Victorian midnight. The hour grows late. The streets are empty now. Only the soft fog walks beside the lamps. A newspaper flutters along the curb. A lone cat leaps from a wall to a fence. Even the stars above London are quiet, faint pinpricks above smoke and cloud, but they shine still, always. Inside the house, sleep has come, not just to the children or the elderly, but to the very soul of the home itself. Eternal night. And so the night carries on. The clock ticks, the candle wax cools, the wind sighs, but no one answers, because every eye is closed, every book is shut, every soul has found its rest. The house, the garden, the city, the past, they drift gently, endlessly, into dreams that have no end, only stillness. The sounds of Victorian London. When the city sleeps, the whispers of cobblestone and candlelight continue. London, a city of steam and soot, of fog and flickering lamplight. But beyond the clamor of industry and horse-drawn carts, there exists a different London. A London that emerges only at night, silent, still, alive with gentle echoes. As we wander softly through its streets, you will hear the true rhythm of a city preparing to rest. Let the world around you fall quiet. Let London show you how even the busiest places hold peace. Close your eyes and step with me into the hush. Cobblestones and carriages. Beneath your feet, cobblestones. They're cool, worn smooth by countless footsteps. By day, carts rattle across them. By night, they are nearly still. Only the rare sound of hooves strikes the silence. A slow-trotting horse pulling a late carriage, the iron wheels gently clinking. The city breathes differently now, softer, lower, slower. Gaslight flickers. Above you, mounted on curved iron posts, are gas lamps. Each one glows with a warm orange hue, its flame encased in glass. The light dances, not brightly, but just enough to paint soft shadows. Occasionally, a lamplighter passes, a long pole in hand, touching each flame, tending the night with gentle purpose. His footsteps are quiet, his task noble. He is a keeper of calm in a restless world. Alleyways and iron gates. To your left, an alley disappears into shadow. You don't walk down it, but you listen. The clink of a gate closing, the rustle of old papers, the drip of a leaky gutter. These are the sounds of sleeping cities. They are not loud, they do not ask to be heard, but they comfort in their regularity. The policeman's watch. A lone constable strolls past in a heavy coat. His boots click lightly on stone. He pauses, looks up at a window, and continues on. He carries no torch, just the quiet knowledge that all is well. The city trusts him, and so can you. Markets after closing. Near Covent Garden or Billingsgate, the market stalls are bare. No shouting, no crates, just the soft scent of fruit and wood and damp cloth. Ropes are tied, tarps are pulled, and behind shuttered stalls, someone snores softly. Even places of noise must sleep. The Thames at night. Down by the river, fog rolls low and slow. The Thames glistens in moonlight, a ribbon of silver. Wooden boats creak in the current. A bell clangs, faint and far away. Water laps against the stone embankment, again and again. A rhythm older than the city itself. You pause, breathe. The river carries your thoughts, slowly, downstream. Laundry lines and chimney pots. Looking upward, clotheslines stretch between buildings. A shirt rustles in the breeze. A child's stocking sways like a pendulum. Above that, rows and rows of chimney pots. They are quiet now. The fires below are low, then the smoke drifts gently upward, joining the mist and vanishing. Stray cat's journey. A black cat crosses the road. It stops, looks at you, then disappears into a garden wall. Its tail vanishes last. It has done this every night. It knows every hiding place, every rooftop. It is part of the city's hush. You are too, now. The closed bookshop. You pass a bookshop, small, old, and beloved. Through the glass window, candlelight glows faintly. Books are piled in cozy disorder, their pages resting. No one reads at this hour, but the books seem alive, dreaming their stories, breathing history. Their silence is eloquent. The seamstress's light. Above a small tailor's shop, a single window glows. Inside, an old woman sits at a sewing table. She threads a needle with slow fingers, finishing the final stitch. Outside, she seems part of the night itself, a human candle keeping the hours sacred. Soon, she too will sleep. Inns and resting places. The old inn, with its wooden beams and thatched roof, is nearly silent. Inside, weary travelers lie beneath woolen covers. A fire crackles low. Boots are placed neatly by the door. Upstairs, a child dreams of steam engines and pocket watches. Downstairs, someone snores softly. You pass by without disturbing a soul. Midnight bells. A clock tower chimes the hour, not sharply, not to wake, just to mark time. Each note is slow, measured, final. You count them. 12. And then the city exhales. London's eternal sleep. The city never truly sleeps, but it does rest. And in that rest, you are safe. The lamplighter has gone. The cat has curled beneath a window. The wind has grown still, and so have you. Fade to silence. There are no more footsteps, no more chimes, just the whisper of London, soft as breath, slow as sleep. Let it carry you now into dreams older than memory, past gas lamps, through fog, into stillness. Good night, listener. Good night, London.
Empire beyond the horizon, a dream of distant lands. The sun never sets on the empire, and in sleep it rises again in memory, a whisper across the ocean. As the stillness of the Victorian night settles, let your thoughts drift further, beyond the firelit parlour and the quiet London streets, beyond even the meadows and hedgerows of the English countryside. Tonight, we journey with imagination, as the British Empire once journeyed by sail. In your mind, hear the gentle lapping of waves, the slow, rhythmic creaking of wooden decks, the flutter of white canvas catching the wind. The year is 1850, and the British Empire is stretching quietly across the world. The maps unfold. On a broad mahogany desk, somewhere in the halls of Whitehall, a map is unrolled by soft candlelight. The paper rustles like distant leaves. The edges are frayed from use, the colors faded, but the names still glow. India, Canada, Australia, Africa, the West Indies. Red marks these lands, not in fire but in familiarity. This is how the Victorians saw the world, not as distant, but connected. The ships that carried time. Close your eyes and step aboard a tall ship of the era. Hear the deep tones of sailors calling commands, the creak of ropes, and the gulls wheeling overhead. These ships carried not only people and goods, but also ideas, languages, customs, letters, books, and hopes. They were vessels of history itself. From the cold docks of Liverpool to the warm harbors of Bombay,
The journey was long, but steady, like the pulse of the empire. India, the jewel of the crown. Now in your thoughts, let us drift toward the east, where warm monsoon breezes blow and banyan trees stand ancient and wise. India was not only a colony, it was a world in itself, a land of temples, spice markets, train stations, and wide rivers. British officers walked beside holy men, traders bartered beside elephants. Languages merged like colors in a dye pot. Though the empire imposed itself, it was also changed by what it touched. The British took tea from Assam, fabrics from Bengal, stories from the Ganges, and carried them home. Canada, the cold frontier. To the north, where the snow falls quietly and lakes stretch farther than the eye can see, lies Canada, the vast, frost-kissed cousin of Britain. Settlements in Halifax, Quebec, and Ontario grew slowly, surrounded by forests thick with pine and silence. Even in the coldest months, there was a gentle stillness, a peace in the white, as if time itself had paused to watch the snow. Australia, a distant warmth. Far across the sea, in the southern hemisphere, the stars spin differently. Here, under eucalyptus trees and along golden shores, the colony of Australia was growing. Convicts, settlers, and wanderers made new lives. Sheep dotted the hills. Simple homes rose from dry earth. The heat hummed in the background, but at night the desert cooled and crickets sang. Britain may have seemed far away, but in the stillness, a new kind of Englishness emerged. Warmer, freer, sun-bleached. Africa, the sleeping continent. The empire touched Africa too, a continent of vast deserts, thick jungles, and endless stories. In Victorian dreams, Africa was mystery and possibility. Steamships entered the Nile and the Congo. Expeditions drew new lines on old maps. But the land was older than all of it, silent and watching. The drumbeat of ancient kingdoms echoed behind the colonial parade. The islands of rest. In the Caribbean, where breezes carry the scent of sugarcane and rum, small islands dot the horizon like stars fallen into the sea. Once places of suffering, they too became homes for poets, farmers, and quiet dreamers. Palms sway in the wind, and waves hush secrets along sandy shores. Here, the empire softened in the heat. Life slowed, and in the evenings, everything felt, well, timeless. Letters from afar. Imagine the letters that crossed these seas, wrapped in string, blotched with ink, filled with longing. A father writing from India to his daughter in Yorkshire. A soldier sending a pressed flower from Africa. A teacher describing coral reefs to students in foggy London. Each envelope held a piece of the world. Each story waited to be told. Empire in the parlor. Back home, the empire filtered into every home in the quietest of ways. In the pattern on the tea set. In the spice in the stew. In the books read by gaslight. It was not loud, it was not always seen, but the world beyond England was present, humming softly underneath the surface, a gentle critique. Even in its own time, the empire had its critics, people who spoke of fairness, of justice, of the rights of others. These voices, though calm, mattered. They too were part of the dream, a hope that even in empire, humanity could shine through. Dreams of the horizon. As the 19th century wore on, maps grew fuller, but imaginations wandered still. For the Victorians, the world was large and inviting. To dream of distant lands was not to flee, but to wonder. Tonight, you too drift gently toward that horizon, sailing home. Now the ships begin their return. Their sails dim in twilight, the waves grow calm. You are not far from home now, but the journey will stay with you, as all dreams do. Let the imagined wind carry you. Let the empire dissolve into mist. Empire sleeps. No flags wave, no drums beat. The empire, like everything, sleeps. And in that sleep, there is quiet. And in that quiet, you too rest.
The Great Exhibition of 1851, A Crystal Dream in Hyde Park. Under the arching glass and iron, the world stood still and marveled. A New Dawn in London. Imagine the early morning mist clinging to the trees of Hyde Park. The air is cool, touched with spring. Slowly, horse-drawn carriages begin to arrive, their wheels crunching softly along gravel roads. The year is 1851, and something extraordinary is about to unfold. The vision of Prince Albert. It began with a dream shared by Queen Victoria's consort, Prince Albert. He believed the greatness of Britain should not only be about power or territory, but about human progress, industry, invention, beauty. And so the Great Exhibition was born, the first World's Fair, a celebration of innovation and unity held at the very heart of London. The Palace of Glass. To house this marvel, a palace unlike any other was built, not of stone, but of glass and iron. Designed by Joseph Paxton, the Crystal Palace rose from the earth like a greenhouse grown vast. It shimmered in the sunlight. 990,000 square feet of shining panels, cast iron columns, and sweeping arches. Like a cathedral to invention, both weightless and grand. People called it magical, like a dream one could walk inside. Crowds from across the globe. The exhibition opened in May. Soon the park swelled with people, lords and laborers, scholars and schoolchildren arriving from every corner of the nation and beyond. Over 6 million people would come before it closed. For many, it was their first glimpse of the wider world. Wonders of the world under one roof. Within the Crystal Palace lay exhibits from nearly 100,000 contributors. Machinery rumbled, textiles gleamed, minerals sparkled. There were steam engines beside porcelain vases, looms from Manchester near sculptures from India. There were telescopes, microscopes, musical instruments, even a massive fountain of crystal and glass. Each display told a story of culture, craftsmanship, or curiosity. A walk among the future. As you drift through this dreamlike structure, imagine the sounds, the soft murmur of thousands of voices, the clicking of clocks, the hiss of steam. Young minds marveled at electric telegraphs. Engineers leaned over models of locomotives. Artists paused before carpets from Persia, silver from Mexico, silks from China. Every aisle felt like a different continent, every exhibit a piece of time. The world comes to London. The Great Exhibition wasn't only about Britain, it was about the world, as it was then seen. Nations sent their finest, crafts, tools, clothes, spices. There was pride in pageantry, a sense that all humanity, in its difference, had something beautiful to offer. Victoria and Albert walked together. Queen Victoria herself visited often, usually accompanied by Albert. She wrote in her diary how it moved her, seeing rich and poor, old and young, side by side in wonder. They walked through the gallery as if through a garden, not of flowers, but of human achievement. A peaceful celebration. Unlike so much else in history, this moment was not of war or conquest, but of peace. No armies marched through the palace, only ideas, only dreams. It was a rare moment where the Victorian era showed its gentler face, one of curiosity, imagination, and pride. Lasting impressions. For many who attended, it became a cherished memory, something they spoke of for years. The building, the smells of machinery and perfume, the colors and textures, the sound of languages from distant lands. It was the world held briefly in the hands of a city. A sunset over glass. By October, the sun began to set on the Crystal Palace. The exhibits were packed away, the crowds thinned. But the memory lingered. The spirit of invention had found its cathedral, and then quietly slipped into dream. A legacy of wonder. Though the Crystal Palace would later be moved and even destroyed by fire, its legacy endured. It inspired exhibitions around the world. It inspired museums, libraries, parks. It inspired children who would grow up to invent wonders of their own. A place in the heart. For the Victorians, the exhibition represented the best of who they believed they were: hopeful, industrious, curious. And in the hush of Hyde Park, if you listen closely, you might still hear the echoes of that crystalline dream. The crystal dream fades into sleep. Now close your eyes. Imagine the last visitors leaving the palace, their footsteps soft, the lights dimming behind glass. Let your thoughts rest in that vast, peaceful space. Let the world's wonders lull you into dreams of your own. You are safe. You are still. And the Crystal Palace sleeps once more.
In the quiet corners of England, between hedgerows and hearths, childhood unfolded like a handwritten letter, full of innocence, ink stains, and simple joys. A morning in a village lane. Imagine a soft, golden morning in a small Victorian village. The sun filters through lace curtains and dances on wooden floorboards. Outside, dew clings to grass, and the air smells faintly of coal smoke and wildflowers. Children begin to stir. Not yet burdened by the weight of time, their day begins with a whistle, a yawn, and a barefoot run through the garden. The simplicity of childhood. For many, life was modest. Toys were made of wood and imagination. Hoops, marbles, spinning tops, doll houses carved by hand. stories passed down by candlelight, rainy days spent sketching by the window or whispering secrets under quilts. In rural villages and busy towns, children played in fields, alleyways, and along riverbanks. Trees became castles, and puddles became oceans. Laughter, unpolished and true, echoed through the narrow cobbled streets. The school bell rings. At 8 or 9, most children, especially in cities, began attending school. The schoolhouse was often one large room, heated by a single stove with rows of wooden desks and a blackboard at the front. The bell would ring, sharp and clear, summoning boys and girls in woolen coats and caps, slates tucked under arms, ink-stained fingers, eyes wide with curiosity. Learning to learn. Lessons were strict and simple. Reading, writing, arithmetic. Recitations of poetry. Memorization of moral tales. The sound of chalk tapping, of ink pen scratching, of pages turning. Discipline was firm. The teacher, usually a local woman or former clergyman, commanded silence with a glance. But within the quiet came discovery of words, of numbers, of ideas. Some children would never go further than the basics. Others would find in books the spark of a life beyond their village. The ragged schools. For poorer children, there were the ragged schools. Named for the clothes their students wore, these schools were lifelines for the urban poor. Run by volunteers, missionaries, and reformers, they provided free lessons to those who otherwise had none. Imagine a small, drafty room tucked behind a factory. Thin coats, cold hands, but eyes eager to learn. In these rooms, education wasn't just learning, it was hope. Afternoon play. After school, children scattered back into the lanes and meadows. Tea was taken early. Bread and butter, sometimes jam, perhaps a warm cup of milk. Then came play. Skipping ropes slapped stone paths. Boys played cricket with makeshift bats. Girls made daisy chains in the churchyard. Siblings chased each other around hedgerows. In these moments, time moved slowly, unhurried, kind. The sounds of home. Evenings brought families back together. Candles were lit, the fireplace crackled. Meals were humble. Stew, potatoes, seasonal greens. Children sat at their parents' feet, listening to stories, sometimes from books, sometimes from memory. Tales of dragons and foxes, of kings, saints, and clever mice. Soft lullabies drifted through the home, carried on voices tired from work, but warmed by love. Rich and poor, divided childhoods. Of course, childhood was not the same for all. In grand homes, children had governesses, music lessons, polished shoes. They learned French, Latin, and drawing. Their nurseries were filled with fine toys and warm blankets. But their lives were also shaped by expectations, by silence, by formality, often seen but not heard. In contrast, children of the poor worked early, in fields, factories, or helping at home. Their joys were fewer, but not lesser. A crust of bread shared with a sibling, a song sung while scrubbing clothes. Joy, it seems, found a way, even in hardship. Books and imagination. Books were treasures. A tattered volume of fairy tales could be passed through generations. Stories sparked dreams of far-off lands, of kindness, of magic. Children read by candlelight, or, if too young to read, listened with wide eyes as an older sibling or parent brought words to life. These stories weren't just entertainment. They were comfort, escape, inspiration. Holidays and simple pleasures. Holidays were rare, but joyful. May Day brought flower crowns and dances around the pole. Christmas meant oranges and stockings, carols sung by firelight, and paper decorations hung with string. The simplest gifts, a wooden toy, a sugar treat, were received with reverence. There was no need for extravagance. Wonder lay in the little things. Illness and fragility. Yet childhood was also fragile. Many did not survive to adulthood. Illness was common and medicine primitive. Parents held their children close, knowing each day was a blessing. Loss was part of life, but love remained. Stitched into quilts, carved into tree trunks, whispered in lullabies. Growing up too soon. Some children grew quickly, helping care for younger siblings, working beside parents, facing the realities of poverty and labor. Yet even in their early maturity, there were stolen moments of joy, a joke, a song, a barefoot run through a summer field. The quiet of nightfall. As the sun dipped low, the sky painted in dusky pinks and grays, children yawned and stretched. Blankets pulled tight, lamps turned down low. A final story, a whispered prayer, a mother's kiss. Sleep came gently, and with it, dreams of simpler days, of gentle laughter, of a world wrapped in wool and wonder. Echoes of innocence. The Victorian child, whether rich or poor, grew up in a world that was changing, but still deeply tied to hearth and home. They lived with less, and perhaps, in some ways, with more. More closeness, more imagination, more connection to the earth and seasons. Their days, though filled with hardship, were also filled with wonder. And now we drift. Close your eyes. Hear the sound of a child's laugh, distant now. See the flicker of a candle, the bend of a willow tree. Let the simple rhythm of those quieter times carry you into slumber. You are safe, you are warm, and you are home.
Evening of the Fire. Victorian Family Life. As twilight draped the rooftops in soot-colored silk, and the last light dimmed behind chimneys, the family hearth came alive, not with grandeur, but with warmth, routine, and whispered affection. Dimming light, rising comfort. The lamps outside flickered as the streets emptied. Chimney stacks released their final wisps of smoke into the navy sky. In terraced homes, narrow yet proud, a familiar ritual began. The evening hours of the Victorian family. Fathers returned from factories with coal-smudged sleeves. Mothers wiped down tables and stoked the fire. Children, weary yet wide-eyed, waited for stories and warm bowls of supper. Within these moments, quiet routines took shape, like well-worn clockwork, humble and gentle. The heart of the home. In the center of this evening world stood the hearth. Not just a fire, but a symbol of togetherness, of survival, of peace. The fire glowed orange and soft, casting dancing shadows on wallpapered walls. Overhead, a kettle hissed. On the mantel, simple clocks ticked. And around it all, the family gathered, to eat, to talk, to simply be. It was here, beside this fire, that daily life unwound its tensions. Supper on the table. Evening meals were simple, yet always made with care. Bread, cheese, perhaps potatoes, and if fortune allowed, a stew of root vegetables with meat. The table was small, the utensils mismatched, but manners were taught strictly. Children waited for elders, and every crumb mattered.
There was quiet pride in stretching little into enough. A mother's ladle, a father's silence, the clink of bowls, all part of the evening's rhythm. The stories they told. When dishes were cleared and the fire burned low, it was time for stories. Grandmothers spoke of country days. Fathers recalled market gossip. Older siblings spun tales from newspaper headlines or penny novels. These weren't grand epics, but small treasures. Tales that made laughter echo down stairwells and made children dream of distant places from under woolen covers. Homework and hushed lessons. In homes where school was possible, evenings included reading lessons. By candlelight or oil lamp, children practiced their letters, guided by elder siblings or tired mothers. Fingers traced words in fading primers. Arithmetic was scratched on slates. And if books were scarce, reading came from memory. Nursery rhymes, Bible verses, poems recited by heart. Learning was a quiet defiance of hardship. The Children's Corner. In the evening room, children had their own world. Perhaps a rag doll, a worn wooden toy, or a chalkboard for drawing. They played softly while adults spoke. They mimicked tea parties or made shadow puppets on the wall. Even in poverty, the imagination blossomed, and parents, despite their weariness, stole glances filled with affection. The language of love. Victorian families weren't always loud with love, but it was there, woven into acts. A scarf knitted for firelight, boots mended after hours, a hand on the shoulder, a nod at the door. Fathers who rose early and mothers who never sat down, their quiet sacrifice was the language of care. Bed shared and shared dreams. Sleep came in tight spaces. Children often shared a bed, head to toe, beneath heavy quilts stitched from old clothes. Bedrooms were cold in winter. Breath showed in the air. Yet there was closeness. Stories were whispered, secrets exchanged. A sense of safety bloomed in togetherness. Some children fell asleep listening to the ticking clock. Others drifted off with a cat curled at their feet. Mothers by candlelight. Long after the family slept, many mothers stayed awake a while longer, mending trousers, rereading letters, preparing breakfast dough, watching the fire's final glow while holding on to thoughts they never spoke aloud. These were moments of solitude, reflection, and unspoken strength. Gentle music in the parlor. In slightly better off homes, the parlor might have held a piano or harmonium. Evenings sometimes ended with gentle music, a hymn, a folk song, or a slow waltz played softly for no one but the family. Children swayed sleepily, couples sat in silence, warmed by melody and fire. Letters from afar. Occasionally, a letter would arrive. From a son in the Navy, a cousin in the colonies, a brother who had gone to find work in the North. Such letters were read aloud after supper. The room quieted. The fire snapped gently as foreign places unfolded through ink. It reminded all of a larger world beyond their walls. Closing the curtains. Finally, the curtains were drawn. The door was bolted. Shoes were lined beside the hearth, and silence, like a blanket,
fell over the house. The final embers of the fire glowed in quiet witness to another day survived, another evening shared. The meaning of home. For the Victorian family, home was not made of wallpaper or furniture. It was made of habit, endurance, and love. Though hardships loomed outside, inside there was order, ritual, and small peace. And as each evening came to an end, so too did the family close its circle, safe within its walls, resting beside its humble fire. Sleep comes softly. Let this scene linger in your thoughts. A room lit by amber glow, the hush of shared breath, the comfort of knowing where you belong. Tonight, as the world quiets, may you feel the same safety and stillness. May the fire within you flicker gently and nourish your dreams as you rest.
The working class and the humble hearth. Beneath the chimneys and within brick terraces, the beating heart of the Victorian era was not found in palaces, but in parlors warmed by coal fires, stitched with sacrifice, and soothed by simple joys. Morning over rooftops. In the hush before dawn, rooftops crowded close together, crooked chimneys and laundry lines silhouetted against a slate-gray sky. In terraced rows of brick, narrow alleys, and soot-streaked windows, the working-class day began. A kettle rattled gently on the fire. A cough echoed in the stairwell. Somewhere, a child stirred, wrapped in hand-me-down blankets sewn with care. Outside, the cobblestones were damp with morning dew, and the lamps still glowed with fading gaslight. The rise of the working poor. While the aristocracy spoke of empire and industry, it was the hands of the laborers, the men, women, and children that built the age. From chimney sweeps to dock workers, seamstresses to street vendors, coal miners to domestic servants, millions rose each day before the sun, shaping Victorian life from below. They were the backbone. Their homes were small, often crowded, but they were places of pride. The modest home. Imagine stepping inside a modest Victorian dwelling. The parlor is tiny but neat. A rug lies before the fireplace, threadbare but swept. Above the hearth hangs a shelf with teacups, chipped yet carefully arranged. On the walls, faded portraits and a cloth calendar hang beside a sewing hook. The kitchen is little more than a table, a basin, and a few well-used pots. But it smells of bread, coal smoke, and life. A woman's world of chores. Women ruled these spaces. Before even tasting tea, many had scrubbed floors, stirred porridge, polished boots, or soothed a crying child. Laundry was a back-breaking task, done by hand with soap flakes in cold water, then hung to dry in narrow alleys. Meals were simple: bread, cheese, and broth, occasionally wheat, a true luxury. Despite long days, many women found solace in small routines, darning socks by firelight, folding linens, telling bedtime stories in hushed tones. Children in the shadows of industry. Many children of the working class knew little of toys or school books. Some as young as 7 worked in textile mills, coal pits, or as crossing sweepers. Their hands were small enough to fix machines, their eyes sharp enough to sort, and yet their hearts still held childhood dreams. Evenings were brief, filled with tired feet, warm soup, and whispers under shared blankets. The sounds of the street. Step outside again, and you'd hear the clatter of wooden wheels, the cry of a flower seller, the creak of carts. Newsboys shouted headlines. Women bartered in thick accents. A man with a barrel sold hot eels, while a blind fiddler played for coins on a corner. It was noisy, lively, gritty, but never silent. These were the sounds of a city that never truly slept. Factories and mills. For many, the workday began at 6 and ended after 12 hours. Factories were hot, loud, and dangerous. The air inside spun mills was thick with lint. Gears clanged. Voices shouted to be heard. Fingers moved fast, often faster than was safe. Yet, despite exhaustion, workers returned day after day. Their wages fed families. Their perseverance fueled a nation. Sunday, a day of rest. Sundays offered a sacred pause. Churches filled with hymns and shawls. Children wore their cleanest clothes. The day might include boiled eggs, a shared story, or a walk to the park. For many families, it was the only time to truly be together. It was also a day for dreaming, for letters read aloud, for memories of the countryside, or songs passed down through generations. Little luxuries. Even among hardship, joy found its way in. A tin of toffees, a penny paper, a patch of green behind the house. Neighbors helped one another. Children made up games in the alley. Women swapped recipes. Men shared news by the lamplight. Life was not easy, but it was lived with resilience, humor, and quiet beauty. The fire at night. As night drew in, the city softened. Coal fires flickered. Mothers tucked in sleepy children. Steam rose from kettles, and weary bodies curled under blankets. The hum of factory whistles gave way to stillness. In the glow of the hearth, voices lowered, dreams stirred. Behind every soot-darkened brick, another life readied for rest. Pride without riches. Though their names rarely appeared in books, the working class carried the age's weight with quiet dignity. They owned little, yet their homes were swept, their hands calloused, their children kissed goodnight. They endured, and in enduring, they gave the age its soul. Asleep beneath chimneys. Let us now drift with them to narrow staircases, warm bread ovens, and the soft creak of bedsteads. Let the hush of humble rooms ease your breath. Let the simplicity of small joys quiet the noise of the world. You are safe. You are seen. And tonight, the hearth glows only for you.
Books, art, and quiet creativity, the gentle soul of Victorian culture. Beneath the weight of industry and iron, there pulsed a quieter rhythm, one of pens and paintbrushes, of softly turned pages, and the soothing companionship of thought. A culture carved in candlelight. Even as the world outside rushed forward in steam and soot, inside countless homes and parlors, a subtler revolution was taking place. Victorians, from nobility to clerks, carved out small sanctuaries for creativity. Amid teacups and ticking clocks, ideas bloomed. Reading, sketching, composing, each a gentle protest against the pace of modern life. By candlelight, minds wandered freely. The household library.
The idea of a library was not limited to the rich. Even modest homes often boasted a narrow shelf of treasured books, worn Bibles, tattered novels, or collected poems. Second-hand bookstalls made literature more accessible. The penny dreadful and serialized stories brought Dickens and Doyle into the hands of chimney sweeps and governesses alike. Children read aloud after supper. Parents annotated margins. Books, even when few, were loved deeply. Writing as reflection. Writing was not just for authors, it was a daily practice. Diaries were faithfully kept. Letters were handwritten with grace, and poems found their way into birthday cards and recipe books. For many, writing was a ritual of reflection, a soft mirror held to one's quiet soul. Ink-stained fingers, candle-lit desks, and parchment sheets bore the emotions that words struggled to speak aloud. Drawing rooms and drawing books. In parlors across Britain, the drawing room wasn't just a name, it was a verb. Women and men alike sketched flowers, silhouettes, and architectural studies in sketchbooks. Some copied from illustrated journals, others captured glimpses of the garden or household cat. Art was both pastime and peace. The act of drawing, slowly, attentively, was meditative, intimate. The music of the middle class. Pianos were prized possessions. Even in humble homes, harmoniums or simple flutes added sound to silence. Evenings echoed with hymns, folk songs, or gentle compositions. Sheet music was shared among neighbors. Children practiced scales. Women composed lullabies. Sometimes a single violin could serenade an entire row of houses. Music soothed the exhaustion of factory life. It gave expression to feelings that had no words. Needle and thread as art. Embroidery, knitting, lace-making, these weren't only domestic duties but artistic acts. An embroidered cushion cover held as much beauty and intention as a painted canvas. Women stitched initials, floral designs, and heartfelt sayings onto handkerchiefs and aprons. Needlecraft was an act of creation, patience, and quiet pride. Scrapbooks and keepsake albums. Many families preserved memories and sentiments in elaborately decorated scrapbooks. Dried flowers, locks of hair, pressed stamps, newspaper clippings, and even scraps of ribbon told stories of love, loss, and daily wonder. They were handwritten museums of the soul, tender, detailed, and irreplaceable. The artisans of leisure. Men carved wooden toys. Women made dolls from cloth and thread. Young girls illustrated tiny storybooks. These were not grand, but they were sincere and full of heart. Creativity lived in idle hours, in rain-soaked afternoons, and in moments by the fire when hands wanted to move even as minds wandered. Public spaces, private muses. Those who could visit museums, exhibitions, or botanical gardens came back inspired. The Crystal Palace,
art exhibitions and traveling lectures left impressions that turned into verses, sketches, or essays. Even window shopping in London might birth a new poem. Imagination fed off observation. The public world ignited private creativity. The dream of publishing. For some, the written word was more than hobby. It was hope. Letters sent to editors, poems submitted to journals, essays written in candlelight, then tucked into envelopes with trembling hands. Many never saw publication, but the dream itself sustained a sense of worth and wonder. Inspiration from nature. The Victorian garden, whether sprawling or potted on a sill, was often muse and subject. Birds, roses, clouds over chimneys all became sketches, metaphors, or verses. Children copied them in watercolor. Mothers painted them onto crockery. Elderly men jotted them in notebooks. Nature, even in soot-covered towns, found its way into art. Literary circles and tea tables. Small groups formed to read and share, sometimes family, sometimes neighbors. An excerpt would be read aloud, tea poured, a poem discussed, a new novel passed around. Even when silence filled the space, the companionship of creativity bound them together. It was literature as lantern, lighting minds and bringing kindred spirits close. Sunday stillness. Sundays offered respite. No work, quiet homes, time for musing. It was on these days that many wrote, composed, arranged flowers, or simply stared out the window and allowed themselves to dream. These hours were a gentle gift of stillness, of soft thought, of emotional breath. A culture of gentle expression. The Victorian era, so often remembered for rigid rules, was also a time of flowering creativity, soft, sincere, and heartfelt. In every sketchbook and sonnet, in every stitched cushion or quiet piano waltz, Victorians expressed their humanity, not through noise, but through nuance. Drift into imagination. As you drift to sleep tonight, imagine yourself in one of these parlors, warm light, books nearby, your fingers tracing ink or thread. There is peace in quiet creation. There is magic in small acts of beauty. Let your dreams be painted with the strokes of this gentler world.
In full. Twilight years of the Queen, the waning light of the Victorian era. As the long shadow of the 19th century stretched toward a new dawn, the figure of Queen Victoria stood quiet but resolute, a living memory of a century she helped define. A monarch worn by time. By the 1880s and 1990s, Queen Victoria had grown into a deeply symbolic figure, not just a ruler, but a living emblem of an empire that stretched across continents. Her presence, though increasingly reserved, brought a sense of continuity to a people rapidly facing change. Victoria, once a youthful and spirited sovereign, was now an elderly monarch, widowed, cloaked in black, and steeped in memories. Her grief for Prince Albert had never left her,
and she continued to wear mourning attire for the rest of her life. Her figure had become iconic, her silhouette recognized in portraits, coins, and stories across the globe. The changing world around her. The twilight years of Victoria's reign witnessed a world in flux. New technologies, the telephone, the automobile, and electricity emerged, reshaping life at an astonishing pace. Political movements stirred, labor rights, women's suffrage, Irish nationalism, all signs of a world yearning to evolve beyond its established boundaries. And yet, at the center of this shifting world sat the Queen, constant, unwavering, an anchor to the past. A queen and her grandchildren. Victoria, in her later years, was not just monarch of Britain, she was the grandmother of Europe. Her descendants married into royal families across the continent, earning her the affectionate nickname, the Grandmother of Europe. She played a role in arranging marriages, offering counsel, and attempting, often in vain, to preserve peace among nations that would soon face unprecedented conflict. Family visits and gatherings offered her comfort, even as distant echoes of disagreement and future war hovered over Europe. The Diamond Jubilee. In 1897, the Empire paused to celebrate Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, 60 years upon the throne. The event was more than mere pageantry. It was a moment of imperial unity, showcasing Britain's global reach. Troops from across the colonies paraded through London. Banners of India, Africa, Canada, Australia fluttered in unison. And there she sat, frail but dignified, waving gently to her people, a monarch who had reigned through invention, insurrection, and empire. The weight of memory. In her later writings and reflections, Victoria's tone was subdued, often filled with longing and reflection. She remembered Albert in nearly every journal entry. She remembered her youth, her coronation, her children. Time seemed to fold inward for her. The present often dissolved into recollections. It was not uncommon for her to sit in silence, eyes unfocused, lost in a sea of memory. The Queen's health and ritual. Despite age and infirmity, Victoria maintained her sense of duty. She still signed papers, met dignitaries, and received reports. Her days, though quieter, followed a rhythm of royal obligation. She relied on trusted servants and physicians. Her appetite waned, her mobility slowed, yet she clung to routine. The rituals of monarchy, breakfast trays, carriage rides, handwritten correspondence, kept her steady. The public followed her health like they would that of a beloved elder. Newspapers printed updates with reverent care. Children in school whispered prayers. Her subjects, whether in cottages or colonies, hoped she might reign forever. In her frailty, the Queen had become more human, more loved, no longer just sovereign, but symbol of home and history. Osborne House and Balmoral. Victoria sought solace in the places she had shared with Albert. Osborne House on the Isle of Wight became a haven of memory, while Balmoral Castle in Scotland remained a place of seasonal peace. She would sit by the fire, surrounded by mementos, her faithful dog at her feet, her gaze often fixed not on the landscape, but somewhere deeper, into the realm of emotion and recollection. The final days. By the winter of 1900, her health declined rapidly.
The new century had arrived, but she seemed reluctant to enter it. Family members gathered around her bedside. Doctors spoke in hushed tones. Her breathing slowed, and on January 22nd, 1901, Queen Victoria passed away at the age of 81, having reigned for 63 years. Her death marked not just the end of a life, but the conclusion of an era. Mourning a century. The nation mourned with a solemn unity. Black drapery covered public buildings. Bells tolled across Britain. Newspapers bordered their pages in black. Thousands lined the streets as her body was carried to rest beside Prince Albert. She had become the living spirit of a century, and with her departure, the Victorian age, too, took its final bow. A legacy of light and shadow. Her legacy is vast and complex. She presided over industrial triumphs and colonial atrocities. She inspired reform, but also clung to tradition. She symbolized strength, but suffered deeply. And yet, for all of history's judgment, one truth remains. She endured. Through loss, change, and challenge, she remained the figurehead of a generation. The gentle sunset of an age. Imagine now a soft sunset over the Thames. Lamps glowing in fog. A widow's silhouette in a palace window. Somewhere, a piano plays an old tune. The 19th century quietly exhales its last breath. And in that stillness, we remember her, not as an empress of dominion, but as a woman who bore the weight of time. Let your mind rest here, in this twilight, among memories, among stories, among the flickering lamps of a fading era.
A soft farewell, the closing curtain of the Victorian era. As twilight deepens and the world hushes, the grand stage of the 19th century prepares to close its velvet curtain. The flicker of gas lamps dims, the hum of the industrial age slows, and a softer, more contemplative silence settles over history. The turning of the page. The death of Queen Victoria in January 1901 did not just mark the passing of a monarch, it marked the transition of a world. For over 60 decades, Victoria had been the heartbeat of an age defined by steam and empire, lace and law, reform and rigidity. With her final breath, the very spirit of the 19th century seemed to exhale. The modern world now beckoned, yet the soul of the Victorian era lingered gently, like perfume on a winter coat, or music faintly remembered. Echoes in every street. The era lived on in brickwork and cobblestone, in literature and law, in moral codes and domestic habits. Every terraced home built with symmetry and pride, every clock tower chime, every railway line snaking through hills, all whispered of a time when invention met restraint, and dreams were clad in velvet. Even as cities modernized, you could still walk through neighborhoods where chimney pots stood like sentinels of a forgotten rhythm, and where children's laughter echoed under wrought iron railings. A world remembering itself. Writers and thinkers of the new century often turned their gaze backward, not with nostalgia alone, but with reverence. Virginia Woolf, Kipling, E.M. Forster, all stood at the border between the old world and the new.
They remembered parlors and parlance, corsets and carriages, the stillness of a letter arriving in the Morning Post. The Victorian past would not vanish. It would become myth, motif, and muse. The children of the empire grow up. The children who once studied Latin under gaslight and recited poetry in drawing rooms were now adults in a dawning century. They bore the lessons, prejudices, and graces of a time that had shaped their character, a world of hierarchy, discipline, and decorum. But they also carried the seeds of revolution and modernity. From them would rise the suffragettes, the reformers, the poets of war, and the architects of peace. They were the bridge. Inventions as inheritance. Though the factories quieted and the smokestacks became relics, the fruits of the industrial age endured. Electricity lit the future. Telephones connected voices once separated by oceans. Trains and ships moved ideas and people. The Victorians had not merely passed, they had built. Their legacy was not just cultural, but infrastructural, in bricks and blueprints, wires and wheels. A shift in spirit. There was a quiet shedding of formalities. The elaborate mourning veils were set aside. The rigid etiquette softened. Modernity moved in with bicycles and typewriters, short haircuts and suffrage meetings. Parlors became sitting rooms. Servants became salaried help. Queens became constitutional symbols. The stiff corset of Victorian life loosened, giving breath to a freer, if more uncertain, age. The final portrait. Imagine now a dusty frame on a mantelpiece, a photograph of a young Victoria in coronation robes, the edges yellow with time, but the gaze still firm. The image is not just of a person, but of an entire age. And as the candlelight flickers in a quiet room, that portrait becomes a portal, not to a time lost, but one forever remembered. A gentle nightfall. Let us close our eyes and return once more to a quiet Victorian street. The lamplighter moves gently from post to post. Horses trot slowly, their hooves tapping softly on stone. Inside homes, tea cools in porcelain cups. Books rest beside feather quills. Curtains are drawn. The day has ended. The century has ended. And in this gentle nightfall, we do not mourn, but remember. The final whisper. The Victorian era does not end with thunder or fanfare, but with a whisper, a soft exhale, a turning of a final page in a treasured book. And as that page turns, you are invited not to forget, but to dream. Dream of cobblestones and candlelight, of letters and laughter, of railways and rainy afternoons. Dream of a time that still lingers in corners of architecture and memory. Let the flicker of history soothe you. Let the echoes of the past wrap you. Let the Victorian age, in all its shadow and splendor, be a lullaby for the soul.
As we close the pages of tonight's journey, may the echoes of the past softly lull you into peaceful sleep. You've wandered through gaslit streets, felt the warmth of firelit parlors, and listened to the quiet rhythm of Victorian life, all while the world outside gently faded away. Here at Ancient History Sleep Stories, we're honored to bring you rest from the comfort of the past. If this story helped you drift a little deeper into calm, we gently invite you to subscribe. Give this video a quiet like and leave us a comment. Tell us where in the world you're listening from tonight. Your kind words help our stories reach more sleepy dreamers just like you. Now, close your eyes. Let time slip away and dream in sepia. Good night, dear listener. Until we meet again beneath another moon in another time.